And so it is Rome, and certainly with the tacit approval of the Jewish religious establishment, Rome goes about the grim work of crucifying Jesus. Mark wants us to see this. He wants us to see this crucifixion, and he wants us to winch. For it is the Savior who is being slaughtered by the machinery of the state, along with the insulated self-righteousness of the religious elites. It would seem all hope is lost. Let me give you an example of this. And I'm not taking sides, but I want to give you an example. We have states that think that it's okay to execute people. Okay, all right, and maybe it is. Maybe it's all right to hook people up to old Sparky. Okay, we can at least open the question. Maybe is okay. But where are the clergy who know better, and yet they go ahead and go along with the states and say, this is what Jesus would do? Well, we still do the same things today. So what you have is you have the machinery of Rome getting ready to kill Jesus, and you have the religious leaders who could have said stop, but they go right along with it. They're insulated, they're elitist, they are in their pretend world, they are in trouble too. Anyway, all this is going on until, for Mark, two events happen. The first is in verse 38, where the curtain in the temple is torn in two. Now, what in the world does this mean? Well, in what I would call, and not in a derogatory way, in what I would call the practice of higher Judaism at the time, there was a curtain that separated one part of the temple from an area called the Holy of Holies. So, real quickly, it would be like this. Imagine there was a curtain down here. Back in here was the Ark of the Covenant and seraphim and cherubim and things like this. And the people would be out there, although they didn't have pews. And then once a year, what would happen is that the high priest, the acting high priest of that particular year, on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, he would come in and he would come inside the Holy of Holies, and he would offer sacrifice to God on high for the sins of Israel. And presumably then God would accept that sacrifice, and the sins of Israel for that year would be forgiven. Now all others, of course, would be kept away, and the more impure you were, the farther away you would be from. Now this is really important. The more impure you are, the farther away from the Holy of Holies you'd be. So you have the high priest, in our case, that of course would be me. No, you're closer, aren't you? That would be Nino. And then you've got some Levites, all men of course. And then you've got important people. And then out in the and then you got women back in the back. And then you got the court of the Gentiles. And then outside of the whole complex, you got all those messy little sinners, you know, that you don't want to be around. Okay. Now this is really important. So the farther away you are from the Holy of Holies, of course, you really can't see. And you can't get into the temple, and you certainly can't get into the Holy of Holies. So what's happening then is, with the tearing of the curtain, symbolically to be sure, but also in a very real sense, all have been given now access to gaze at God's presence. Now think about that. I said all. That would include myself, the high priest, and the most pure. But it also would include those of you of lesser purity. Do you see what I'm saying? And so you could get even way back up, well, on the west side of town, you know, where the real impure people in Bloomington are, and even they would be able to see God as presented in the east side of town. And don't ever say this isn't a class a class society. It really is. You know, it's a class society. And so anyway, but even those people in a very poor part of town, they would have access to see God. It's been ripped open, been torn down. And now anybody can gaze upon God's presence. This includes all, and not just the pure, but all now have access to look at God. That means that you don't have to be pure to see God. Symbolism is fine, but becomes sublime when actualized. And now Mark comes to the grand finale. The curtain is torn, God is revealed, and by this I mean the true, selfless, non-sinful nature, of course, of God is revealed for the world, and not just the Jews to see. Because that means in the court of the Gentiles, who are non-Jews, they can see too. And that includes all the outcasts, and that includes all the sinners, and that includes all the fallen people, and the broken, and the maimed, and the sinners. And so these people then now are going to have an opportunity to see the true nature of God revealed